Black people have demonstrated an unwavering loyalty to the Democratic Party dating back to Kennedy's presidency. But while Dems reap the benefits of our overwhelming support, we literally just delivered them Congress and a White House, they don't seem to have a sense of urgency when it comes to addressing black issues. Police reform has failed, voting rights legislation is stalled, and black folks are asking, yo, what's the deal? Our next guest published an op-ed for TheRoot.com today titled, The Unbearable Whiteness of the Democratic Party and America. In it, he declares that the party has turned its back on black people. I'm so excited to have with me writer of all things race, politics, and culture, and a white peopleologist. Welcome to Amplified, Michael Harriot. Michael, so glad you're here. You know, as you always do, you tell the truth, and you tell the truth even when it isn't pretty. You wrote in your op-ed today that we on our own as black people. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think black people are keenly aware that even though we use the political, we use the Democratic Party as a political tool, it's our only entree into politics, you know, because the Republican Party is the party of white supremacy. But I think black people amongst each other, we always talk about, like, we know those white people don't care about us. We know they're not going to do anything for us unless we really push them to, but we can't separate ourselves from politics in America. So, we're kind of in between a rock and a hard place. But I think that, we are keenly aware that when push comes to shove, when things get tough, as you've seen with the police reform bill, as you've seen with the infrastructure bill, and as you've seen with voting rights legislation, when it gets tough, the Democratic Party is ready to let it go and say, governing for black people is kind of hard.
Governing for black people is kind of hard. We could do hard things, right? Because we're the United States of America. So I want you to break down some more of the ways, though, because you eloquently outlined this in your piece, of how the Democratic Party has failed us. And I want you to lay those out because I know that there are Democrats who are watching this show right now who are like, yo, you're kind of being really harsh. Like, hold on, give us a break. So give us some specifics of where you think that they've completely dropped the ball.
Well, take this voting rights legislation, for instance, right? If it was something that was important to the party, or if it was something that, if they did use the same tactics as the Republican Party, Mitch McConnell would have strong-armed Joe Manchin into voting for this legislation, or either killing the filibuster, right? We know that. We've seen them do it. Take police reform, for instance, right? So we've been watching them shuffle this piece of legislation and kind of compromise with Republicans when most people aren't aware that almost every provision in this police reform in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act could have been done through the presidency, through an executive order, or through the Justice Department. It really didn't need to go through Congress, except that it wouldn't have, the next administration would have had the opportunity to roll those things back. So, they're not taking every avenue to get the things that they want. And as we see with the Republican Party, right, when they want a Supreme Court justice, they don't care what the rules are. They don't care what the tradition is. They're going to get their way no matter what, because they're going to stand up for white people. And if the Democratic Party stood up for black people like that, they might have more support.
You bring up such a good point about the brokering and the posturing that's been going down or not in this Congress and with this administration, because I can't help to think about the fact that I heard today that Kyrsten Sinema has had an audience and a conversation with the White House 5 times around the infrastructure package. Who the heck is Kyrsten Sinema? No one in America knows or cares, or at least they didn't before she became a stalwart in the Senate that was blocking things that mattered to us, right? All of the energy going into trying to bring her along on one of the, the key signature pieces of the Build Back Better bill, or, whatever it is. I don't know that I have heard that kind of energy really going into arm twisting with Manchin and her around voting rights. To your point, we just saw the Justice for George Floyd Act completely fail. And I just am curious what, your thoughts are about Congress getting things done or not versus the White House's ability or incentive to go after some of those members that are standing in the way. Because it's not all of them. It's a handful. We know who they are. And it seems like they're talking to them about some priorities, but not really posturing on the others. So what's your take right now on what the White House is up to? You know, do you think their hands are tied or not?
Well, I don't think their hands are tied. First of all, you know, when you're talking about Karen in Chief Kirsten Sinema, like there has been no public pressure from her colleagues put on her, right? Like we know who it is who's obstructing the voting rights legislation and the infrastructure bill, but like no one is saying, Kirsten, get in line, right? Not Chuck Schumer, not her Democratic colleagues, not the people in the White House, not Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden. So she gets to exist in this nether region where she gets to dance around with Republicans and pretend she's a Democrat, right? When they should be saying, why don't you want black people to vote? They should be saying, why don't you want to help black people economically? That's what they should be doing. But one of the most important parts is, like, in talking to Senate and House staffers is, like, one of the things that the Democratic Party hasn't even mentioned is that they could just fire the parliamentarian and hire another parliamentarian.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a thing that Republicans actually did in 2001, which is how we got the Bush tax cuts. But the Democrats don't even seem to even want to exercise that option when it's very important legislation resting on this, right? We're talking about black people's right to vote. And if you don't think that they will take black people's right to vote, look at Georgia, look at Texas, look at what's going on around the country. They're going to do it if they have the opportunity. And the only thing that is stopping them is the Democratic Party, who appears to not be concerned at all.
So, you know, you bring to mind for me this idea of motivation, right? I think that if there is a will, there's a way to get things done. And what I'm hearing you say is that there probably isn't much will right now. At least it doesn't seem like it, to do things on behalf of black people. So if Democrats are not posturing on behalf of us, who put them in place, who elected them, who gave them these majorities, who do you think that they're posturing in servants of?
Well, we've seen what the Democratic Party is always chasing is the moderate white vote. That's what Kirsten Sinema is doing. That's what Joe Manchin is doing. That's what Joe Biden did during the election. That's why they turned away from black voters who were always loyal to them. And when this voting rights legislation happened in Georgia and Texas, right, what was their answer? Well, you black activists like Natasha Brown, I know you guys are going to get us, find us a vote. Because they know they depend on our work without reciprocating policy and legislation in our favor. So they're still courting those middle of the road white moderates in the swing states and not paying attention to their base. And we see what happens when what could happen when that happens, because we saw what happened in the 2016 election when black voters were apathetic and didn't show up at the polls.
Yep. That we did. Michael Harriot, I always appreciate your insight and analysis. And more importantly, I appreciate how hard you go for us. Follow him, theroot.com. Thank you so much for being with me on Amplified. Hope to have you back again soon.